Oh, my, oh my, oh my. Oh my days. Now, usually, I wouldn't really give two tosses about what my rival clubs are doing. Usually, I wouldn't. I wouldn't sit here and think that this is an absolute madness, that this is crazy stuff that's going on. But, well, be honest, this is crazy stuff. This is mental shit. We've got a fan base that's in absolute turmoil. That they'll FSG in, then they're FSG out, then they'll FSG in again, then they're FSG out, and then they're FSG in, and then they're FSG out, and then they're FSG in, and then they're FSG out, and then they're FSG in, and then they're FSG out. It's just like they're chained. It's like the FSG brigade seem to be, changing like the weather. It would seem they seem to be changing like the weather. It's crazy. It's absolute madness what's going on. But CAICEDO transfer madness. So as we know, if you've been living under a rock, I think everybody and their grandmother knows that Chelsea have been in the driver's seat for the Caicedo deal for a very, very long time, a very, very long time, and have been slowly bumping up the prices a little bit. Ooh, bad skin, but yeah, it's just gradually bumping up the price as we go along. A little. I think it started around 60 million and went bumped up to 70, and it bumped up to 80, and then we got to the 90 million. So that was probably like one of the last um, official figures that was submitted, because Chelsea are, I think, in the realms of submitting their fourth or their fifth bid for Moises Caicedo now, which is it's madness. It is absolute madness, and I mean the value of said transfer that this could wrap up being is absolutely mental. It is mental, absolutely mental. We're going to jump straight into things. We're going to get into the nitty and gritty. Liverpool fans, Chelsea fans, how are you feeling? I can see the tears. I can see the flood warnings coming from Merseyside, from all of the, all of the shed tears from Liverpool fans. I can see it right now. Just the, the widespread flood warnings and the widespread something else flood warnings in West London, it would seem. So, crazy things going on. Obviously, Chelsea, in first place is a one horse race for Caicedo. Liverpool had other ideas. They thought, you know what? That thing that Klopp said back when United signed Paul Pogba, that, the day that spending hundreds of millions of pounds on single players was became the new norm in football, was the day that Klopp wouldn't be in a job. I don't know about you, Jurgen, but I think you're due. I think you're due a resignation, buddy. I think you're due a resignation. I think it's time to pack it in now. Your beloved club decided to stick a record-breaking transfer fee on the table just to then get the player or his agent or his camp call you up and say, you know what, we were going to come to you, but let's be honest, he's actually kept his word. He's kept his word to the West End Cowboys. He's keeping his word. He ain't coming to you. You can book a medical all you want, but this ain't going. This ain't happening. It ain't going down like that. And man, Chelsea will be breathing a sigh of relief from that exclusive bombshell from Fabrizio Romano. They'll be breathing a sigh of relief, saying, "Oh, thank God that Caicedo wants us over Liverpool. It's just on the sole basis that Chelsea submit a bid now that Brighton accepts." So they might as well say, well, okay, cool. Well, we'll bid exactly the same. We'll stick that on the table. And if you say yes, then fantastic. We can then jump onto personal terms. If you say no, that's no problems. There's no dramas. We'll just stick an extra 5 million onto it because let's be honest, we know that both of these clubs have got mad amounts of money. that they can spend. We all know it. I mean, I'll tell you who was going to be especially pissed off with this, and that's going to be Southampton. It's going to be Southampton. You know, all of this haggling, try and get the fee down. Oh, come on, get the fee down. Just lower that a little bit. You know, it's just 50 million for Romeo Lavia. That's all you got to pay. And if we'll say, oh, we don't have that money, we don't have that money, but we'll stick 110 million pounds on the table for Moises Caicedo. I prefer not to speak. I prefer not to speak. If I speak, I'll be in very big trouble. Crazy, crazy stuff. Absolutely crazy stuff. So I look forward to seeing the way that Liverpool might have to return back to Southampton with the tail tucked between their legs. It's just like, yeah, about that. Um, we loaned that extra stuff in, right? We loaned that extra money. We we're still brokies, right? We're still brokies, and you're still desperate for money, right? Right? Well, yeah, we're all buddy buddy in this facade, right? Well, I'll tell you what, Liverpool FC, you're gonna have to wash your hands clean of any of that bloodied mud that is currently covering your hands. If you want to, you know, have good relations with Southampton, you know, you've bought off of that club. You've essentially turned them into your feeder club for a long, long time now, and you're gonna have to go do it again after all of this unnecessary uh, bidding undervalues and not just paying up on what they ask for. You know, and I don't. It's like it's all cool. It's all well and good that that clubs do this. That they sort of bid a little bit under the asking prices. You know, just to really test the water, because obviously being in a seller's market right now, um, a lot of clubs want to sell, but they you know, with inflations and everything, there's a lot of you know, extortion at asking prices. Um, you know, going around, flying left and right. Um, of course, there's a lot of there's a lot of crazy things going on with the sellers market with football clubs these days. But I think with the buyers market, you know, there's a lot of people that don't really want to spend lots of money, but everybody seemingly knows that everybody else has got money. So it's just like, well, perhaps the selling market is not going to be, you know, giving an inch to the buyer's market. It's going to be, well, the seller's market is going to be very stubborn and say, well, look, you're paying what we want you to pay, and that is pretty much it. You know, Bob's your uncle. He's, you know, you're going to have to pay up. You're going to have to break that bank. You know, transfer records, British transfer records. You're going to have to do it. There's only one club that really is going to be laughing their way to the bank with this, and it's Brighton. I mean, man, Brighton are sitting there just watching these crazy amounts of money just being flown around, and it's just like they don't really care if he goes Liverpool. They don't care if he goes Chelsea. They don't care. They're getting rich. They're getting even richer. They're getting hundreds of millions of pounds. So they're not going to complain even in the slightest. But I'll tell you what, Liverpool fans, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? I was watching the Anfield Agenda last night, by the way, and you know, the giddy old Craig is he was absolutely loving life. You know, last night he was you could tell he was you know, quite flustered. You know, bit flushed in the face. He was excited. Man was excited. He was looking forward to saying, you know, maybe he would have done a Caicedo jig, maybe a Caicedo song or something, doing an AFTV or something. Maybe he would have done that, but you know, he was mad excited last night, and just to turn around this morning or this afternoon and see, well, look, things just ain't as simple as it seems. They just ain't as simple as it seems. Yeah, 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 yeah. Thought you were getting Caicedo less than about, like, what is it, 12 hours later? Less than 12 hours later. Just like that, it's back. It's the ball is back in Chelsea's court. And I'll tell you what, there, there's someone else that I've got to highlight here as well, and that's Jamie Carragher. This guy tweeted in response to the. Let me have a read here, right? I want to see what his full dialogue on this has been. But he tweeted, and mad is this guy is. So his last tweet, essentially, before this Caicedo stuff, right? Well, actually, no, this is during the Caicedo stuff. So 110 million is a big price for Caicedo, but Liverpool had to pay big as clubs knew they were desperate. But signing two top young players for 145 million and selling two of your older players for 52 million is great business. So, according to Jamie Carragher, this is great. This is fantastic for Liverpool. It's all crazy stuff. It's all crazy. It's crazy. It's a mad world, but this is all great. Fantastic news. Brilliant news. Breaking British transfer records, in order to bring the players that we need to bring in through the door, It's all great. It's all fantastic, right? What is it? Like 4 hours later, he tweets this when Fabrizio Romano drops the bombshell saying 110 million is ridiculous amount of money to pay for a 21-year-old. Bowley has lost his mind yet again. So FSG hadn't lost their minds then. So they hadn't lost their mind. Jamie, look, buddy, we get it. You are absolutely seething. I can see the steam coming out of your ears right now. I can see it. You are absolutely plum tomato red in the face, right? We can tell. We can absolutely tell. Just hold that L. Just hold the L. Like the rest of the fan base, the Liverpool fan base, gonna have to do. Just gotta hold that L, man. Sometimes you just don't have quite that level of pull that you think you have. And there's still some Liverpool fans holding on to hope. They're clinging on to hope. They say, look, wait for Jurgen Klopp to pick up to pick up the phone and give him a call. And then it will sway back the other way again. Just wait for that phone call to come in. But man, it's crazy, but it's absolutely hilarious at the same time. Just watching the meltdown. I've even got the Football Terraces stream on pause on my other monitor. It's actually absolutely hilarious. I'm once I'm done here, I'm gonna go back to watching that. That's absolutely hilarious. Big ups to everybody that's in here. Make sure you're smashing that like button. Big T, good to see you. Liverpool saved a lot of money on McAllister and received bonus money from Saudi on a couple of players. Take that into consideration. They've put about 50 mil into Caicedo. Well, I think what's crazy, right, is that look at the way that the Romeo Lavia transfer saga has gone, and the way that they've been trying so desperately to haggle that deal down in valuation. But then, what? Like a week later, you're smashing down, you're tabling a bid, in the hundreds of millions for a single player. That essentially you're signing to do the same role as Romeo Lavia. Now, some Liverpool fans will tell you, look, we've got to get a couple players in, we've got to get a couple of midfielders in, and to various extents they're right, because it's like, what is it, 4 first team midfielders? I mean, I don't know if they've sold Naby. Have they sold Naby Keita yet? They might have done. I've not been paying attention to Liverpool outgoings. They've let go or sold 8 players this summer, and so far only signed 2. They're looking to sign their third. So even on that basis, that's not enough. If you're looking to stir up a rebuild here, you should have at least had about 4 players on the incomings at least at this point. But the fact that they're sat on half of that trying to negotiate for their third signing, I'll tell you what, you play the club that you're locking horns with right now in the transfer market, you're playing them on Sunday. That's the day after tomorrow, right? So I don't know if this is like a war of attrition or something, or like a mini Cold War, just sort of showing each other your financial prowess, your flex, your financial muscle. You're showing everybody your guns, right? And it's like you're baring your teeth at them. It's kind of like a mini war, mind games going on, and to go ahead and sign a direct target of your rivals and then playing them on that same weekend. It's like a lot of people say, well, look, said club is already like 1-0 up, and it's kind of that's basically where it's all almost sat at the moment. But Liverpool, they've done well with saving money on the McAllister signing, because I think, yes, that is a good signing, and Dominic Szoboszlai is also a good signing. 100% a Klopp signing in Dominic Szoboszlai. But tell you what, though, the third signing is where they've hit a massive stumbling block, and Southampton must be looking at this going on and thinking, why the bloody hell did they not just put 50 million on the table? Because it's not like, of course there was multiple clubs interested in Romeo Lavia, but Chelsea have always been after Caicedo, and Chelsea, we know, are very willing to table lots of money for transfers. We've already seen it. Last summer was a prime example. Smashed pretty much every transfer record that there was. It's crazy stuff. But but Liverpool decided, you know what, we're going to test this. We're going to test this. They're going to test Chelsea's resolve. They're going to test Todd Bowley's resolve. We're going to table a competitive bid that outbids Chelsea. They did that, right? So they've essentially gone from trying to underpay on the asking price from Lavia to overpaying the asking price for Brighton, right? But Chelsea, well, I'll tell you what, Liverpool have essentially thought they've blown Chelsea out the water. But what's actually happened is, like when you jump out of a pool too fast, that the resistance pulls your trunks down. So you've jumped out of the water and you're standing on the pool side, but your trunks are still in the pool. So everyone's just staring at you in your nudie rudies, right? And it's just like Liverpool are that person. And Chelsea are just like, well, look, Caicedo, he wants Chelsea. He wants Chelsea. That's where he wants to go. So he's keeping his word, right? He's keeping his word. And I'll tell you what, sucks for Liverpool. Sucks for Liverpool. But yeah, question really for now is, where do they go from here? Does this incite an even bigger scale bidding war? Does this, does this spark, do Liverpool come back to the table with an even bigger bid? Because I'll tell you one thing, the only way that they really, really can at all beat Chelsea in this now is just bidding more than what Chelsea offer. And that would be a recipe for disaster for Liverpool, an absolute recipe for disaster. We had a 5 million deal lined up for Caicedo years ago. Woodward pulled out. Yeah, 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 yeah. I'll tell you what, Woodward is probably looking at this completely obnoxious and oblivious to the history of this deal. So he's probably looking at this transfer saga going on right now, if he actually still has any interest in football, laughing his head off. Just like, oh, look at these two clubs making fools out of each other. But Woodward, you are made to look like the biggest clown of them all. Way back. Way, way back. And that's the bitter truth. I mean, for United fans. And I'll tell you what, it does really, really suck that we never. I think it's one of those where at the time we probably looked at Caicedo and thought, oh well, he looks like an exciting young player. It looks all right. I think it looks a lot worse now because it's in hindsight to seeing what player Caicedo has turned into now. But I think a lot more people would have probably overlooked that transfer back then when we were linked to the player. So I think there's an element of it where it's like, in today's world, the fact that we passed up a £5 million Moises Caicedo looks a lot worse in hindsight from today than it would have done back at the time. So, you know, but then again, I'll tell you what, if Ten Hag was around back then, I think we might have done the Caicedo deal. But then again, Ed Woodward back then was not giving the managers any sort of input into the transfer market. You know, it was all Woodward's show, you know, his dog and pony show, and that was it. You know, no one really had any power and pull over Ed Woodward. Um, how do you think Brighton sell all their star players and still manage to compete at the level they do? Um, well, I'll tell you what, they do have a very, very good scouting network, Brighton. They do have a very, very good scouting network. They see a lot of potential in a lot of players, right? And they see them at the early stages. A bit like when Ralph Rangnick was here, and we looked into his track record with signings, and basically, yeah, he was signing superstar players on their first and second contracts, whereas Man United usually we sign a player on their third and fourth contract. So that's when the player starts to get much more expensive when they reach their third and fourth contracts. But it's like Brighton are able to recognise serious talents when they sort of get to about the first and second contracts, um, and they see a lot of potential, and they've got a fantastic manager in which he plays a style of football that's very modernised. That it fits the bill for what a club sort of needs to do, what's necessary for a club to do on the football pitch in the modern day. A very modern style of football. You know, they don't just sign any young player. Like they'll sign someone that fits the picture to what De Zerbi wants. And they play this fantastic football that plays a lot of teams off the park. And it's all the little different smaller elements that contribute to building the bigger picture here. And it's kind of like what I say with Eric Ten Hag. He's got to have all the little pieces put together. It's like a puzzle piece that then constructs this bigger picture that, the football looks fantastic. The talent of the players, the potential of the younger stars, it all just sort of falls into place a bit here. And Brighton are somewhat, in a similar camp. Like they want to, buy cheap, but cheap potential on the first and second contracts, and then sell them onto the third and fourth contracts for way more, way more money. It's like hundreds, thousands of percent increases on player values, and that's what we're seeing with Brighton. That's what Southampton used to do. The only question really is it sustainable? That's the only question really. Is it sustainable? Because you can find all of these cheap gems, but what you could encounter is where the quality of the younger stars you bring in doesn't match up to the level that the guys you've just sold off were when you signed them, so that the overall quality of the squad starts to diminish a bit. But if also De Zerbi ends up, being picked up by another club, and the football level drops a bit, diminishes. It's like Pochettino at Southampton. When Pochettino left, they had one or two other managers that perhaps, got a good tune out of the Southampton squad, but then eventually it started all falling away. Started to fall away a little bit, and eventually look at where they are now. They've still got some younger players which a bigger club could buy. Absolutely. They could still have that same idea or concept in mind. But at the end of the day, not trying to battle to keep your stars or to recruit to maximize the spending from the money that you make, or the return investment being as good, is eventually, they've run their race. And I think Brighton, they will have to look at Southampton as an example, as a path to avoid going down. So, do you think if Brighton started keeping star players that they could become a regular top four finisher with the manager they have now? And I believe so. Yeah, yeah, I do. I think if I suppose the problem is the ambition at the club. And I think players will feed off of the ambition of the club. And if Brighton were to turn around tomorrow and start talking about European football on a frequent basis, Champions League, oh, let's push for some of these other cups and trophies on the side. Of course, you will get some star players that will still say, well, look, I would like to get this move to this bigger club. But you keep a lot of interest quite Brighton centric, because a lot of players will say, well, look, that's a club that they want to push on to competing in the more prestigious competitions. They want to stay right at the top end of the table. So some players would ask themselves a question: what would I get if I were to decide to go to Tottenham Hotspur that I can't get at Brighton right now? What could I get if I moved to Arsenal that I couldn't get right now? And it's like when you start to get players asking that question, the ambition of the club is right up there. That's when you start to see the picture of what people think of when they see Brighton Football Club start to change, start to shift. And then the perception of the club changes. And then lo and behold, Brighton end up seeping into the big six conversations again. Well, I say again, they never were in the big six conversations to begin with, but an outside club going into the big six conversations, and once they get there, then the whole perception changes, and then Brighton have essentially, they've struck gold. But that really will depend, I think, based off of what it is that the hierarchy at Brighton actually want from their club, right? Because they might turn around at some point and just be like, well, look, we're happy with what we're doing right now. Buying cheap, selling expensive. We're just a selling club, but we play good football, and we're just here to make good profits. And to me, in the modern game, that it looks good when you watch it happen. It does look good, but when you see there's a lack of return investment, I mean, Brighton have recruited fairly well this summer. But I'll tell you what, the proof's going to be in the pudding. But as well as that, the perception of supporters are looking at, oh well, Brighton have lost XYZ players this summer, so now everyone's thinking, well, actually, they're going to be lower down. When they do their Premier League predictions, they got Brighton further down the table. So, maybe that's a telling sign that perhaps Brighton, they've got to be a little bit careful here. But yeah, I suppose the question is how long is De Zerbi going to be staying at Brighton? Because I tell you what, De Zerbi is playing quite a modern style of football. But I do think that if Brighton, the football that De Zerbi plays can make some of Brighton's players look a lot better than what they actually are. My question really is going to be, once De Zerbi leaves, and he will leave, I'm fully convinced of that. He will eventually leave. The question is just when, not really if. Life after De Zerbi, and football. Yeah, maybe, just a hypothetical. Maybe Brighton end up finding another De Zerbi after De Zerbi. Maybe they do that. Maybe they keep this, this feel good factor going on at the club, and all of this, fantastic football. Buy the cheaper potential options, and use the manager to say, well, look, can you get the best out of these players? Yes or no? And just keeping that system going, keeping that club ethos going. But the question really is going to be, if they don't get another De Zerbi or a De Zerbi like manager that really does elevate the squad or do well to to actually get good development out of their players. Um, I just think it smells of trouble for Brighton. It does. It smells of trouble. If they don't play good football, these players that look good under De Zerbi probably won't look so good, and then they'll start dropping down the table. Um, Potter back to Brighton with tail between his legs. Possibly, possibly. I mean, Potter wasn't a bad manager for Brighton. Didn't have a great away record. But yeah, of course, played some good football. Played some good football at Brighton. But I don't know, to be honest. I think it was really going to depend on what Potter's intentions are, because I think man's just still enjoying his payout from the Chelsea sacking. He's still enjoying his payout because that's kind of what happens nowadays with managers. You take a very high value contract, get sacked, and your payout is so big, your severance pay is so big, you can literally just sit on holiday for about 3 years and not worry about running out of money at all. I wish it's like, I'll tell you what, it's one of those jobs where it's just like, cool, you get mad abuse for it, right? And you'll probably get embarrassed by the amount of times you get sacked. But take a managerial job in football, have absolutely no clue as to how to do football management, then get sacked after like 3-4 weeks after signing on a like a 3-4 year deal or something, and kick back and relax when they sack you, because you would have like a million, £2 million payout or something. And just sit back and relax. So completely underqualified, no qualifications for a job. Um, get sacked, kick back and relax. Happy days. Just to wind up and do the cycle again about a year's time. It's all good. You can sit and wait for the England job. I'll tell you what. I mean, Gareth Southgate. I mean, you know Gareth Southgate. I know a lot of people, right? Some a lot of people. It's crazy, right? Southgate looks like he has a lot more support than he actually does, right? People who are football centric, right, who think football, who live and breathe football, say Southgate's not good enough, right? The people who live and breathe football. It's funny because every time we go into an international tournament where England play in, you get a massive influx of fans who are not football fans, right? They usually say, I don't watch football, I don't like football, but England's on. They keep saying, but look at what Southgate's done. He got us to a semi-final. He got us to a quarter-final. He got us to a final. He got us here. He got us there. And it's just like, but read in depth. Do a bit of digging. Why did we not win the final? Why did we not go to the final? Why did we not get to the semis? Ask these questions. Why did this happen? Why did that happen? And then you see how it all plays out, and you're like, oh, right. So it's like against Italy, right? A footballing side. We started the game on the front foot. Italy looked shaky. They looked vulnerable. We scored a goal early in the game. Luke Shaw, fantastic goal, brilliant. Jubilation. Everyone's off their seats. Everyone's losing their minds. Then the game switches because Southgate decides, right, time to pack up shop. Shut up shop. Back 11. Stand in the goal frame if you have to. Do what you can. Just don't concede goals. And what happens? Gareth, what happens? We concede goals. Why do we concede goals? Because we sit back. We sit back, and our centre backs are not as good as you make them out to be. Because when you play against a football side, it doesn't really matter who's in that defence. Doesn't really matter because they're just going to break you down. They're going to break you apart. They're going to find those half yards of space. They're going to create chances, chance after chance. And what happened? Turned into 1-1. It's just like he does. he does it. His instinct was to defend and not go for the kill. Exactly. And he's absolutely got a team that is 100% attack heavy. It is attack heavy. The amount of talent that this England national team has got up top is ridiculous. One of the most in depth, well, I say in depth, the biggest depth of quality of attack in the world. I mean, Portugal's up there. Could say Brazil's somewhat up there. Um, Not too sure about Spain. I think they're sort of, hit and miss. I think Germany's, not striker heavy, but more sort of inverted forwards and attacking mids and all of that jazz. But we've got a whole plethora of talent in our attack, in our final thirds. I mean, left wings, right wings, strikers, attacking mid. There's all sorts of talents that we've got all sorts of talents. But Gareth Southgate just the guy almost plays. It's like the systematic play not to lose. Like, seriously, stop playing, stop pussyfooting in the big moments, because that's where it matters most. You take the risks in the big moments. I would much prefer having lost to Italy on penalties after, finishing the game 2-2 or 3-3, because we went out there and we really pushed for the kill. Like, I prefer to, if we ever lose a game, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. But if you sit back and just let the game come to you, it's like, I prefer losing a game if I know that this team has, really pressed the issue. I don't like sitting back and waiting for the game to come to that. I mean, being a Man United fan and watching that same game plan happen for years and watching it fall flat on its face, it's like, for goodness sakes, yeah, go and get the game. Go and get the game. It's right there. Finals, semi-finals, whatever it is. It's knockout competitions. Don't hold back. We were knocked out. We were not knocked out. We threw in the towel. And I'll tell you what, it felt like that. It really did feel like that when you sat there in reflection of the game and you were just thinking, man, if we had just gone and done this in that game, man, if we had just gone and won the game here in this way. And it's like, that's the thing, that's the annoying thing, is you watch it in these insignificant qualifier games, right? It's like when we play San Marino or something. You see the team try and be a bit more frontal, a bit more, press on the front. The team is not sat deep. You're not parking the bus or anything. You're slightly pushed further forward. It's all good. It's all good, right? But it's not where it matters. You want it to matter at a more important stage, like the quarterfinals, semi-finals, finals. That's where you want it to matter. But it's always, we see it in the nothing games. Southgate really makes himself look, really, really good. But it's like, you're not fooling anyone anymore. You're not fooling anybody. We know what your game plan is. We know what you're like. When the pressure comes, you disappear. You disappear. And that's the facts. That's the fact of the matter. So, I mean, Graham Potter, for a manager that's got a philosophy, for a way that he wants to play football. Listen, he might take the England job. He could either be a revelation or he could just be another Southgate. Now, I think at least with Graham Potter, like Chelsea and Graham Potter, right? He had a whole squad that just wasn't his, right? The signings that summer were made for Thomas Tuchel. They sacked Tuchel. He takes over a squad that's pretty much just not his own. And, the guy just looked like he didn't have a single idea on how to proceed that in that position. Some of it is down to the players. At some point, they have to read the game and see that if they go for it, they can win. The manager is not going to shout at them for ignoring him and winning the game. But that's the thing, is the personality of some of the England players is not really it's not really like that. All of these we see it with all of the social media fronts. Oh, everybody loves the gaffer. Everybody loves the gaffer. You know, we're all for the gaffer. You know, back the gaffer, back the gaff. It's it's just it feels like with some of these players, they haven't got a spine or the leadership in the team, isn't you know putting forth their concerns to a manager, saying, "Look, boss, I think with this game we got to push forward. I mean, I don't know what you think, but I think this game, this team is there to be got at, and I think we've got the guys to do it. I think we've got the firepower to do it." So it's like you can see with the way that Gareth Southgate lines up the teams, his philosophy doesn't get questioned by anyone in the camp. It's like no one questions him. No one questions him. And I mean, it doesn't help that we got an FA, and by FA usually we'd associate it meaning Football Association, but for us, for me, it's like the FA, the English FA, the English fuckallery, because the FA just don't care. They really don't care as long as the guy is, a man of the people of the country. He's got everybody that likes football and doesn't like football on his side. It's all, wave the Union Jacks, wave the England flags, get the horns out and everything. It's just crazy. It's madness. Once the starting whistle blows, it's over to the captain, I think. Otherwise, what's the point of a captain? I think that's a fair point. I think when you think through history, right, captains and the personalities that had the captaincy, usually you'd see a captain invoking, inciting, physicality on the pitch, or they're screaming at people, they're pushing their players around. The captain was the bully figure on the pitch, but he commanded the respect. It just feels like the captain's armband nowadays is turned into an accessory. I'll tell you what, Harry Maguire's a perfect example of turning the captain's armband into an accessory. He brought an ego, but man was a pussy. Man was a pussy as a captain. The guy just didn't want to take any blame, no accountability. Any problems that happened, Harry Maguire was nowhere to be found. It's like when you saw the stories come out when like Cristiano Ronaldo had to go, he just didn't respect Harry Maguire. Wasn't captain material. He had no respect. Some of the guys in the squad, no respect for Harry Maguire. The guy just wears the armband like it's an accessory. Oh, look at this cool armband that I've got on the sleeve of my shirt, guys. Didn't that look cool? Does that mean something, right? Does that not mean anything to you? Captains of old would signal to the bench which player he wanted subbed off. Captains would literally be like the vice manager, right? They used to be like the vice manager. I mean, what is it like Lionel Messi? Um, I mean, the guy doesn't cut a leadership figure as such, but his influence, you'd feel it. You'd know. You could tell where, like Lionel Messi, when he was captain, his influence was very strong. Like you could see where there was decisions that were made because of the captain. That's the problem with guys like Harry Maguire. They don't make decisions. That's their problem. They don't make decisions and they hide from accountability. It's like Andre Onana looks more like captain material, and he's been here for a couple of weeks than Harry Maguire has been captain material for his entire tenure at Manchester United. Because man came out after getting lobbed and took accountability, even though personally I don't believe that was his fault. I don't believe that was his fault. Like, Onana's got instructions. Dalot played a stupid pass. Varane was asleep. Hmm. And you know what? That's a good point there. United players feared Keane in the dressing room at halftime, not the manager. They had fear in the manager as well, but where they have a captain that really does back the manager, the captain, right? The captain understands the absolute necessity to win, right? And it's like they are the ones that there's multiple people, right? There's figureheads, in the dressing room, right? There's the winning mentality in the dressing room that's reciprocated, and it's very prevalent in the dressing room, right? You'd see it with the way players play on a football pitch from first half to second half. When someone was going at you in a dressing room, you'd see the second half they're better. We've had for a while, several occasions. I think with Eric Ten Hag, that sort of returned a bit. I do think that has returned a bit. I do think that there's occasions from first half to second half where a player plays woeful in the first half. They do improve in the second half. Um, but I just feel like with captaincy, you've got to have someone who is really bullish, really really bullish, that commands the respect and play not in fear, but play with fear, right? And that's the thing, is it doesn't happen enough, right? Where you play fearing, if you don't put in 100%, you're afraid of the fallout. And there's not enough fear in footballing dressing rooms anymore. There isn't enough of fear. It's the fear, but it's respect. It's respectable fear, right? You sit there and you go, well, that my captain, I'm absolutely shit scared of him. If I don't pull my weight in this game, he's either going to kick the shit out of me after the game or at halftime, or it's going to come Monday morning at training and I'm going to be in the parking lot walking into the training ground and the guy's going to 2-foot me in the back of my head, right? He's going to absolutely kick my ass. It's like there's none of that fear. There is none of that fear. And I suppose I guess it's like perhaps the role of power, where we talk about player power, perhaps seeping into the modern game a bit, where it's just like the only power a player should have is a captain with the incentive to lead. Um, but also where managers get disrespected, usually the club sides with the players nowadays rather than the manager. So for too long, our captain was the worst player on the pitch. He could demand nothing from his teammates. Yeah, and that's like what I said with Cristiano Ronaldo. The guy did not respect Harry Maguire. He didn't respect him. And once the second you see that one of the star figureheads in the dressing room, who isn't captain, sits there and is just like, I don't respect you as a captain, it's over. The dressing room is finished. It is absolutely finished. I think with Bruno Fernandes, the guy demands a lot. He's very vocal. He's quite pushy and shovey. And I know a lot of people say, well, look, he's a petulant child. He whines and complains all the time, but the guy's desire to win is without question. He wants to win everything, and he's very vocal. He's very, very vocal. So I think that there's a lot of people that when Bruno starts talking in the dressing room, people actually shut up and listen to him. I know a lot of people say, well, look, the guy just complains a lot. They probably, if he starts moaning, they probably tell him to shut up. I mean, maybe on a football pitch, you see one or two cases of that, but bloody hell, at least with Bruno Fernandes, he's trying to assert himself. And that's what I want from a captain. Assert yourself. Command some bloody respect. Petulance is passion. And it's like, what would you rather have? A captain, right, that has a lot of shit to say in, media interviews, right, with an ego that he doesn't warrant, while sitting on a football pitch making howler error after howler error, pointing at people and just looking like you're absolutely lost on a football pitch. I mean, I'd much rather have Bruno Fernandes. That's like when people say, look, I don't want Bruno as captain, I want Martinez as captain. Look, that's its own conversation. Anybody that's vocal and shows passion on a pitch, right, and shows a fight and desire to want to win, right, is covering first base of having a competent captain. Like, just have some competence in that department. That's all that we ask for. That's all we want. And once we get that, cool. Let's worry about now. Let's start having conversations about all the other areas of the pitch, right? About all the other roles in the team. That's when we can have those sorts of conversations. But bloody hell, just have a captain that actually looks like he gives a shit on a football pitch. We'll be happy. Like, we'll be happy with that. And I think we have somewhat got that with Bruno Fernandes now. So that, that's, I can't complain anymore. Just a little bit on the Harry Kane thing as well. I believe that the permission, because this was a crazy thing as well. Because last night Harry Kane, that transfer happened. We got. I don't think we had. Did we have a here we go? I'm pretty sure we had the here we go. Um, Harry Kane was looking like, look, he's off to Bayern. Look, there's a lot of, you might as well just say, um, yeah, basically, right. It's like the clash settings. Should I stay or should I go now? It's like the I'll tell you what, the Harry Kane transfer saga is a bit of a ball ache, and I can understand where Spurs fans are just right. They're just, yeah. Of course, I fully expect that fan base to be completely divided at the moment. Bruno helps with the ref. The ref knows Bruno will be over if he is not up to scratch. And I mean, look, it's like with Harry Maguire. Like, if players were getting into a scrap on a pitch, Bruno Fernandes will turn up to that scrap. Harry Maguire doesn't. Harry Maguire will keep his distance. Maybe occasionally he'll talk to the ref in the fallout, but the guy's not in battling. He's not battling. He's not on. He's not properly fighting. He doesn't show that he's got the fire. Bruno Fernandes does, right? He'll get stuck in. Um, but yeah, Harry Kane. Look, I think if I'm Harry Kane, I'm thinking, look, my footballing legacy, as far as how successful I am as a player, is going to matter to a lot of people, a lot more people in the future than a goal scoring record will. And I think it's absolutely necessary that he goes and he makes the move to Bayern Munich. I think the guy needs to win trophies if we're going to talk about him as one of the greatest strikers of all time. A lot of people say, well, look, let's take trophies out of the argument, but isn't that what we kind of base a lot of the greatest players of all time? It's like a Lionel Messi. He can play like he's the best player of all time, but if the guy won zero trophies, would he be regarded as the greatest of all time? Probably not. I mean, he won the World Cup, and straight away people are just like, right, there we go. That seals the argument. Lionel Messi, the greatest of all time. And I think Harry Kane, just having goal scoring records, look, he will be involved in the conversations forever about who are the best goal scorers or the top goal scorers in this competitions, and people will say, oh look, Harry Kane was one of the best goal scorers, in this league, and you also get a title the second you sign for Bayern. Is there any prestige in that, really? There's a whole lot more prestige in that than there is, having a golden boot for in the Premier League, and just being a Tottenham Hotspur striker, and believing, well, we'll try and win a trophy this season, and failing miserably in doing so. Personally, I know what I would want. I mean, it's a trophy. It's a trophy at the end of the day. Um, but you go win the Bundesliga title. At least when you look back on your career and you say, all right, so what's Harry Kane won? You say Bundesliga titles. But if he stays at Spurs, you look back and say, what's Harry Kane won? He's won he's won an Audi Cup. He won a cup out in Asia by beating Lion City Sailors. Aside from that, I mean, golden boots, I guess. No, those aren't really. Those aren't team trophies. It's like, I think he's thinking more about a personal legacy, right? I think it's up for the fans to decide how prestigious a trophy is. Um, I'd rather be a top scorer than receive a free trophy. Well, listen, I'll tell you what. I mean, I would rather, if you want to call it a free trophy. I mean, I'll tell you what. I think the Farmers League argument might be in the mud a bit if we see Dortmund end up going and winning, um, go and end up winning a trophy or the Bundesliga title instead of Bayern. But at the end of the day, if you look at a players, how players to, how good they are, how great they are, talent's one thing, talent's one side of the argument, but trophy haul is another. It's like one of the greatest midfielders of all time, Tony Kroos or Luka Modric. If they don't win any trophies, if Luka Modric stays at Spurs, didn't win anything, you look at if goes to Real Madrid and wins all of those trophies, you say, well, actually, if you stayed at Spurs, you know, you don't get remembered for your greatness. You only get remembered for some great performances you put in, and the question, the argument becomes, what could have been? What ifs? That becomes the statement of your career. Your legacy is all about what ifs, and I think that's something. If I'm a striker, I'm sat at a club for most of my career, not winning anything. I'd sit there and think if people start coming up to me, it's just like, well, what if you went to this club and won this trophies here and there and all of that? I think, yeah, that's a good point you make there. I could have won trophies if I went to this club at this point, at this stage of my career. It's like you could have won all there is to win if the move to Manchester City went through those years back. Um, don't stay at Spurs, but you should stay in the Prem. I mean, the most likely club that he probably could have gone to would have been Manchester United, but I think that's probably the realistic club that Daniel Levy would have sold Harry Kane to. But I think that's just it. I think, based off of how much it is that Bayern have put on the table, we now know how much we would have had to have bid to get Harry Kane, or to at least entertain the idea of signing Kane. So obviously we can look at that in hindsight and saying, oh, what could have been? What could have been? We could have done that, but yeah, I think just the way that our transfer window had gone, it's one of those where we can't, like, Harry Kane might have looked like another Frankie de Jong transfer saga, except the player might have decided, well, look, I would like to go to Manchester United, but the negotiations with the club would just be going everywhere. That isn't towards a resolve or a conclusion, and then we'd be so late into the transfer window. But knowing how we do our business, you imagine all the other areas of the team that we wouldn't be focusing on and we wouldn't be signing players for. So it's like, to know that we haven't got Harry Kane, but we haven't tried to, waste a transfer window trying to figure out the golden fee to signing Harry Kane, but to know that we've had 3-4 different areas addressed because we didn't sit there and wait for Harry Kane. I'd much prefer knowing that than having a Frankie de Jong saga 2.0, and I think that was probably one of the biggest risks or worries for some United supporters when it came to talking about doing transfer business with Daniel Levy and Tottenham Hotspur. The question was like, well, are we going to be sat here right the way in halfway through August, just trying to do a simple transfer deal for one player, but then see that we've got shortcomings everywhere else on the pitch, and we run into more troubles. I think that's one of the problems that I think United fans would have been a bit worried about with the Harry Kane transfer saga, if we were to obviously make a meal out of that. But aside from that, I think Harry Kane he was on the way to the airport, and Spurs basically said, hold right there. We're not going to let you fly out just yet. We want to change a few things with the deal. So obviously Spurs trying to make a meal out of it. But I think in very recent times, in the last hour or so, I think he's finally got the permission to go. So I think he is on his way to being a Bayern player. He is on his way. I think, he's either on the plane or he's about to board it. Um, but yeah, it's looking like Harry Kane or Bayern Munich will get their star striker, and that will put them right back in the conversation for Champions Leagues. Because let's be fair, Chipper Motting, um, as much of a workhorse striker that he is, I think Bayern Munich have looked quite lacking ever since the departure of Lewandowski, and I think they've now finally got a worthy enough replacement in. So Bayern Munich, I think, will be back to the very pinnacle of world football. So I think if I'll tell you what, if they do manage to win Champions League, if Harry Kane is a Bayern Munich striker, right? I think when you talk about Champions League, you say, well, usually we sit here and only talk about Real Madrid to win that. But there's probably a few clubs you could say maybe Man City go on to retain it. But Bayern Munich, you can't count them out. Can't count them out. I think there's one club you can count out now, which is PSG. Because, I mean, everybody seems to want to leave PSG now. That squad looks like he's getting absolutely gutted. Gutted like a fish in the harbour. Mad stuff. Absolutely mad stuff. I think I'm going to wrap things up there for the afternoon show. I'm going to be later on. I'm going to be back later on. I'm probably going to do a 8. Well, I'm going to try and do an 8 o'clock show. It might be slightly later, but I'm probably going to do updates on the Manchester City Burnley game tonight because Premier League football's back. Yeah. Looking forward to it, even though it's not my team playing. Are you surprised PSG did not go in for Kane? Probably, but I think I think the politics of that club are so messed up at the moment. I think they can only really, I think we can only really sort of stick around. Well, they can only really stick around for the lower level players or the players that are less politically driven. Because let's face it, they signed all of these global superstars and major brands, and it's gone horribly wrong for them. So I think they probably don't want feeds. They probably don't want to pour more petrol on that fire. Jamino, good to see you. Salute to you, sir. I hope you're doing well, buddy. We want an encore. We want an encore. Ooh, encore. Well, you'll get an encore further later on tonight. Definitely, I'll be doing a stream later on tonight. We'll be delving into a couple of United subjects, but I think it's probably going to be a bit more centric around the Man City Burnley game because I think that's going to be a fantastic game to watch for the neutral. I really think it is. I think it's going to be interesting to see Vincent Kompany get a second bite at the cherry, and whether he's going to find any result against Manchester City or not, I think is yet to be seen. But then again, Man City might end up stomping Burnley out, make it another 6-1 or something. I mean, that's a stark possibility, but we'll have to see what happens further on down the line. When the going gets tough, do the tough get going? And will Burnley be playing tiki-taka football I think it's at the Etihad tonight. Can't remember which way around it is. I believe it's at the Etihad. But very interesting game tonight. Hopefully you guys all tune in for that. Whether I'm going to be able to start the stream on time for the match kickoff time is going to be a whole other matter. I'll see if I can get away from dinner earlier and get this stream on the go. But aside from that, that's it from me for this afternoon. Thank you very much for tuning in. Big ups to everybody that has liked. I see we're currently on 72 subscribers. Also, big ups to those of you who have been subscribing. I'm just going to get the live subscriber count up, see where we are at now. So we're on to 73, on the road to 80 subs. On the road to 80 subs. 7 more to go. We'll get there. Slowly but surely, we are on the way. The train is on the rails. The wheels are turning. We're all cooking. We're all cooking over here. But yeah, big ups to everybody. Big up to you, Big T. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the conversations. It has been a pleasure. And also big up to you, Jaminio. Good to see you again. Hopefully, everybody tunes in for later on this evening. Big ups to you all. Thank you very much for tuning in. And it's goodbye from me for now. See you later.